Okay, good morning, friends. So today marks our first week of our 4-week lesson on psychology in emotional intelligence and self awareness. So, week one today, we're going to be going over understanding emotional intelligence. It has two parts to it. Number one, we're going to go over the definition of emotional intelligence and its importance, which is a very quick one. And then part two is key components of emotional intelligence. So we have a couple things with that. We have self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, social skills. There's lots of nuances and lots of things in between those, but those are the big ones I picked out. We could have made today's lesson really long. We know our emotional intelligence is a very broad subject and it gets thrown around quite a bit nowadays, but I think it's extremely important when it comes to our overall intelligence as a person, because we feel emotions. Unless you're a psychopath, unfortunately, everybody feels emotions. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's a great thing. But if we're unable to define those emotions and be self-aware and know what's happening when those emotions arise, it can be really difficult and challenging at times and often lead to our own demise in plenty of different ways. So let's not waste any time. Let's jump into it, friends. So part one, definition of emotional intelligence and its importance. So emotional intelligence defined. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions, as well as recognize and influence the emotions of others. Everybody got that? The ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions. There's a reason I put that first, as well as recognize and influence the emotions of others. So the importance in your personal life. So EQ for short, emotional intelligence, you'll hear me say that throughout the lesson, helps improve relationships by enhancing emotional understanding, reducing conflicts, and fostering better communication. John, this sounds like a self-help lesson. Well, they all are, really. The importance in professional life. So in the workplace, high EQ leads to better leadership, collaboration, and decision-making. It helps manage stress, handle challenges, and build positive work relationships. So I know that sounds very straightforward and plain. We all know that. But take heart to what I'm saying. Like, this stuff actually does matter. When we're talking about something that can truly help manage your stress, handle challenges in all different facets of your life, and also build positive relationships, not only professionally, but also personally. So this stuff's important. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the lesson, emotional intelligence is thrown around all the time. And oftentimes the context I hear it defined as is the ability to interpret other people's emotions and, be able to recognize minute facial changes in someone and to see how they're feeling and how they're reacting to situations. It's much easier when we really know someone. But there's been interesting studies done in the last couple of years about emotional intelligence. And when I think of emotional intelligence, the first thing that comes to mind is our own ability to recognize and understand and manage our own emotions. So I know we went over this stuff, but truly, like, if I were to ask you right now without looking it up to tell me the definitions and define anxiety and fear, I almost guarantee you most of you would come up with nearly the same definition, unfortunately. And that comes with tons of other stuff, like being frustrated and angry, or upset. What do those different terminologies mean to us? And there's been studies done, and Japan is really good about this. They have specific language to help define certain emotions. Japan even has a word for the emotion you feel after getting a bad haircut. And the studies have shown that the better we're able to define and articulate an emotion and how it's affecting us, the better we're able to understand it and manage it. So I encourage you guys, as you move forward throughout your day and your week, start to pay attention to your emotions and really start to define them. I know this sounds pretty new agey, like, hey, peace and breathe, friends, but truly really bring those subconscious feelings to a conscious level and work through them. Even if they're dirty and you don't really want to work through those emotions, bring them to a surface level and try to define them. Because truly, I tried to do it right now, like the definition between angry and disappointed and upset. It's hard to articulate that, at least for me, when I'm not paying attention to it. And so instead of just having a few categories for yourself, like sad and angry and excited, when you really start to break that stuff down, you're better able to manage your emotions in the same way you treat yourself. If you're able to recognize and understand those feelings in yourself, the better you're going to be able to do so in your relationships and with other people. So it's just like how I always talk about love. You cannot love well unless you love yourself well. So it's the same thing when it comes to emotions. So that's all I got for part 1. Like I said, it's going to be a quick lesson. Part 2 is key components of emotional intelligence. So I'm starting off with self-awareness, and there's a reason I put this at number 1, just like we just talked about. If you're unable to recognize these emotions in yourself, how are you possibly going to be able to recognize them in other people? Yeah, you could say, that person's really angry that I just cut them off. I had to get out of Dodge, take this exit. But truly, when we think about it, like if you're married and you recognize your spouse's emotions, are you able to really articulate how that person is feeling? And I would reckon you're better able to do so if you can articulate your own emotions. I know I keep beating the dead horse, but I'm trying to get that point across. You have to be self-aware to better your relationships as a whole when it comes to emotional intelligence. Okay, so the definition of self-awareness when it comes to emotional intelligence. The ability to recognize and understand your own emotions and how they affect your thoughts and actions. Pretty straightforward. Importance. So self-awareness helps you control emotional reactions, and make thoughtful decisions. It also allows you to understand how others might see you. So that's a big one, that last sentence. It also allows you to understand how others might see you. So oftentimes it's kind of thrown around there that we shouldn't care about how other people think about us, just do your own thing. Yeah, to an extent, but I think we all really do care about what other people think about us. And I'm not saying everybody, but I'm saying the people in your close circle. You should care about how your spouse views you, and your kids view you, and your parents view you. These people that really have a deep effect on your life and an emotional connection to you, whether that's blood or whatever. There are many people in our lives that matter a great deal to us, and we should care about how they view us. So the more self-awareness you have, the more able you're going to be able to perceive how they might see you. So again, it's just a skill set that we should all strive to work on, is self-awareness. And just like everything, I mean, this stuff takes time and it takes focus. Like you can't become more self-aware unless you're bringing that to a conscious level and working on it. Like, am I incorporating protocols in my life to be more self-aware? If you're not, that skill is not going to be developed. Just like playing the guitar. If you're not playing the guitar, how are you going to be better at it? Same when it comes to trading, right? We need to bring these skills to a level of understanding and awareness. That way we can work on them and become better for it and improve our relationships as a whole. So for example, when it comes to self-awareness, if someone is feeling frustrated, being self-aware might help them pause, take a breath, and respond calmly instead of reacting emotionally. I can tell you from experience, and I'm sure you could tell me from experience, taking a pause and reflecting on your own actions in the middle of a heated argument or debate or fight can really help. And I have a great example of this. I had a really, really close friend of mine who I hold dearly to my heart. This was a couple years ago, and we're at a beach house. Everybody's partying, having a little drinks. You know, me and my buddy have been surfing a couple times throughout the day, and everybody's kind of exhausted. We went surfing early that morning, then hanging out on the beach all day, get the sun, you get a little tired, and then we come back and we start drinking a little bit. And for whatever reason, he thinks that I did something to him when I didn't. There's about 20 people there, and he's a little under the influence at this point, starts yelling at me a bit. He's like, hey, why did you do this? Why do you do this? And I'm like, dude, I'm telling you I didn't do it. He continued to go on saying, why did you do this? Why did you do this? And I could feel myself getting really angry, because that's, a personal thing for me. When someone says I did something that I didn't do, it's really evocative to me. It brings a lot of emotions to the surface level, something I'm trying to work on. But I could feel myself getting angry, and I had to take a deep breath and realize, you know what, like, this in 24 hours is not going to mean anything to me. I need to just relax, talk to him calmly, instead of continuing to raise my voice and escalating the situation. And I'm sure there's many times in your life where you can either you have paused and it worked out better for you, or you can look in the rear view and say, oh man, I probably should have paused there and bit my tongue because I shouldn't have said that. So this self-awareness, again, there's a reason I put it at the top of this lesson. It is something that I work on constantly, to be more self-aware of not only my own emotions, but how I make other people feel. And that's a huge part of emotional intelligence. And I think emotional intelligence as a whole is something we should all strive to be better at. All right, moving on, we have self-regulation. So the definition I have here is the ability to control your emotions and impulses, essentially thinking before acting. And it's just like taking that pause and taking yourself out of the situation, gaining a bigger perspective, even though it can be hard at times when you're in the middle of it, and just really thinking before you act. And just like that example I just shared. I mean, that could have led to a fight if I let, like a physical fight between two really good friends, just because of words exchanged and not really taking a step back. But luckily, I had self-regulation to understand the emotions I was feeling, to look at how he was feeling in that moment, take a step back and relax. So that's really what self-regulation is. I ought not get too much into the weeds with this, but the importance is it helps us prevent emotional outbursts and rash decisions, which can cause conflicts. It goes hand in hand with self-awareness, like we were talking about. I'm sure there's plenty of times in your life, if not, good for you. I know there's plenty of times in my life where I really should have taken that pause and reflected on my emotions and the emotions of the other person, and taken a step back and realized what was really going on here. Those chemical reactions in our blood start to really affect our actions if we don't regulate them. So for example, if a person faces criticism at work, instead of reacting defensively, they might take time to process it and respond constructively. Pretty straightforward. I mean, this stuff is foundational. We love to teach it to our kids, but are we practicing that on our own? I would reckon for a lot of us, we're not. Are we, like, look at your schedule. Hey, do I have a part in here for self-awareness and self-regulation? Probably not, like, to build that skill set. So if you're teaching your kids about this, or you would if you don't have children like myself, just take a step back and be like, hey, is this something I want to work on? Am I the type of person that I want my spouse to grow old with? Am I the type of person I want my kids to look up to? And if you're not, well, these are skill sets that are really going to help you become that person you want to be. Okay, moving on. Almost done. Empathy, huge. This is a big one for me. I am a natural empath. I have been since I was a kid. Oftentimes, I don't know if this is healthy or not, but oftentimes I would find myself feeling a bigger emotional response based on other people's situations and where they found themselves than my own. And, that's just something that's been a part of me. That's the way I'm wired. I'm sure there's other things in your guys' life. I know I've met other natural empaths, some people more so than myself. Like one man, I don't know how much I should get into it, but it was incredible to watch. It almost became burdensome because of his emotional tie to other people. But anyway, getting into empathy. The definition I have here is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others and respond to their emotions appropriately. So the importance of this: empathy builds trust and strengthens relationships by helping people connect with others emotionally. And I don't want to just glaze over that, guys. Like, empathy builds trust and it strengthens relationships. And I can speak for myself. And if you do some reflecting, I'm sure you could find some examples in your life where when you meet someone new and for some strange reason you feel it in your gut and the way they talk to you and the way they interact, you know that they have been through some hard stuff. And for me, at least, maybe that's just a gift I was given. But, talking with other people, I often find many people, if not all people, have a sense of a gut feeling when they meet someone and how they feel about them. There's new studies that are really interesting that are kind of alluding to why that might be and why that feeling comes from our literal gut. They found neurons in our gut. It's affected by food, by pheromones, by what we smell. It's really interesting stuff, but there's nothing definitive yet. But, empathy really does build trust. When someone approaches you on a deeper level than you're used to, or that, the group setting is, the culture is kind of showing, a lot of it's at a party could be superficial and, it's like, hey, how you doing? Oh, good. What are you up to nowadays? And then someone comes up to you and sparks a really cool conversation with you on a deeper level about something you might care about, or you can tell that they're passionate about, and you just feel different about them. And the same thing when you, empathy for me is like when I'm walking down the street and I see someone who might be crying, or you could tell in their face, like there is pain that is being had in their life. And I can feel it right now. Even just talking about it, I could picture this guy I saw the other day at Walmart. It's like, oh, that affects me deeply. And for me, I just want to go help that person. And maybe that's, passing that guy in a Walmart, probably not a great idea to run up to him and give him a hug. But that's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is that empathy and the ability to practice and show your empathy towards others and communicate that to someone really will strengthen your relationship like nothing else. And it builds trust to a level that I have yet to see anything supersede that. And if you guys, I'd love to hear your comments about this, because empathy for me is probably, one of those skill sets or natural gifts that supersedes almost everything when it comes to building relationships for me. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. If you guys have got anything, maybe you disagree, maybe you don't, but something that we ought to work on is just our communication and empathy with other people. So for an example, an empathic person might notice when a friend is upset and offer support, or simply listen to them. Sometimes just being there is for someone is the best thing. I know for me, when I'm going through something that may be really, really hard, just knowing that I have a friend across the room, I have times in my life when I went through something or multiple things that were really, really hard for me to deal with. And there was no words to be said by friends that would make me feel better, but having them in my presence is, or close and next by, or just knowing that they're there for me can really help on on kind of a primal level, but it's cool stuff, it's pretty cool. So moving on from empathy, we have social skills. Again, big stuff. And like I talked about earlier, if you guys aren't bringing this stuff to a conscious level, if you guys are not actively improving or thinking about improving these skill sets, they're not going to be improved. Sure, over time, your social skills might get better. They might get worse. It's the same thing. I often attribute social skills in the vast array of things that social skills encompass as driving skills. There may be someone who's been driving for 40 years and they're still a terrible driver and their driving skills are somehow getting worse. Or you have a person who's been actively working on being a better driver for 40 years. That person is an amazing driver and he's super, super good, or she's super, super good. So the same thing comes with social skills. Don't expect you to get better at something just because you're doing it. You may be practicing bad skills or habits in that skill set or whatever it might be. So bring this stuff to a conscious level, guys. I really do encourage you guys to, think about empathy and self-regulation and self-awareness and just emotional intelligence as a whole as something that you can work on and improve. And I often come back to a book called Crucial Conversations, where it really lays a foundation for you to how to communicate effectively. Because I don't know about you, but I know in all my schooling, I was never once formally taught how to communicate. You may have communication classes in late high school and in college, but how good are those communication classes when it comes to really talking about things that matter with your loved ones? Most of the time, communication classes in college might revolve around communications between business to business type stuff, or business to customer, or marketing type stuff. But communication is a skill set that unfortunately none of us are. I would go as far as to say that the vast majority of people are never truly taught communication skills, and we're just thrown out into the world and we learn how to communicate typically by how our parents communicate and how we communicate with our siblings and the ones closest to us. And if those relationships aren't really, really good, and I'd reckon most of them are not, we adopt those same communication skills, and then we go out into the world and there we are. We no further try to improve that skill set, and you go to have children and start a family of your own, and those same communication skills that were never developed are now being passed on. And so again, this is all to say, just I encourage you guys to really think about, your day-to-day actions and what you're doing, and think about, like, man, I've never really thought about my communication skills in that way. Like, I should work on that. And if you really do, I highly recommend the book Crucial Conversations. The 3rd edition is the most recent one. Well, we're wrapping up now, folks. So social skills. The definition I have here is the ability to interact well with others, communicate effectively, and manage relationships. Whew, I've been talking fast. I need to take a breath for a moment, folks. Take some water. Take a little break with me for a second. We probably got another 2 or 3 minutes here, so we're almost done. Okay. So the importance of social skills. I think we all know it's extremely important, but strong social skills help people work well in teams, resolve conflicts, and build personal and professional networks. Pretty straightforward. An example I have here is a manager with good social skills might resolve a team conflict by encouraging open communication and finding a compromise. So another really good example I have for this, away from my notes, is social skills. Again, is just like communication. It's really not taught formally and not taught in a good way. And there's examples of this when it comes to even teaching. So you think about the teachers you had in your life that were really good, and you could probably still remember that teacher. If that teacher was in 3rd grade, you probably remember that class more than a lot of your high school classes. Why? Because of that emotional connection you have with that teacher and what they or how they impacted your life. On the flip side of that, it could be a good or bad experience. When you think about bullying, and I'm not talking about, razzing your friends or anything like that. I actually encourage that a little bit, but I'm talking about actual bullying, like where we can all say, hey, like, you should not be treating other people like that. And when it comes to children in school, bullying can be, again, just passed down from parents. How is that kid learning to communicate? Oh, well, daddy's hitting mommy after he had a couple drinks, and is yelling at her in this way, or vice versa, or whatever it might be. It's probably not healthy relationship that kid is absorbing. And so they go out and they hurt other people verbally or emotionally or physically. And when it comes to social skills, the reason I'm talking about all this is because there are kids that are bullied, seriously bullied, like in a really bad way in class, and the teacher is well aware and watching it happen, but they do not have the emotional intelligence, the social skills, or the communication skills to deal with it properly. So they really do not know how to handle the situation, and they just kind of look away. And that happens way more often than you may think. If you were bullied in school and you ever experienced this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you never were, you may not know a thing about what I'm talking about, but it's a real thing to where injustices are happening all the time, truly just from a lack of social skills, communication skills, and emotional intelligence. And it's a tragedy because in today's day and age, we have all this information and all this knowledge to truly help each other out and improve on all these skills, but we just don't do it. Whether that's laziness or a lack of education, I don't know, but I know it's something that we should all be working on. So that's my little tangent for you guys today. My last little point here I have is building emotional intelligence helps improve both personal relationships and professional success. By focusing on self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, and social skills, anyone can enhance their emotional and social interactions. So again, just to recap, these are all skill sets that if we don't think about them, will never be improved. And if well, I shouldn't say that. If you were taught when you were young, whether formally or by the interactions of your parents and those closest to you, if you were taught to build good habits when it comes to this stuff, you may improve over time. But I would reckon the vast majority of us, unfortunately, don't have great examples of communication. And I'm not blaming your parents or your siblings. It's just how the world is. They were never taught formal communication or social skills or emotional intelligence and how to deal with certain situations. And it's their first time around this crazy thing we call life too. So don't be so hard on them, but bring these skill sets to a conscious level and start to work on them. Because if not, you know, there's so many examples of looking at old people, and some old people are great, some old people suck. It's just a thing of life. If we are not improving on these skill sets, we're just going to be exactly where we are now or worse off as we age, which, you know, it sucks. Unfortunately, that's how the world works. So that's my little psychology lesson for you guys today. I went a little over 25 minutes, 10 minutes over what I thought. But that's how it goes, right? All right, folks. Well, I appreciate you tons. Hopefully you gained a little bit of insight today from today's lesson, or maybe you were just reminded that we all need to be self-aware and focus on emotional intelligence if we do want to better ourselves and better our relationships. So, you know, I think that should be all of our goals. So I appreciate you guys joining up. If you guys have any questions or comments, shoot them out in the chat. But if not, that's all I got for you today. Cool. Yeah, my pleasure, friends. My pleasure. Truly it is. When I go and study this stuff, it helps me tons and helps me focus on the right things. And I love learning, but it also, you know, it's good to spread this stuff too. All right, friends. Well, it looks like that's it. I think we have prop firm session coming up here shortly. So I hope you guys enjoy that. Focus on your risk management. Go tell your loved ones that you love them. Go pick the organic stuff in the grocery aisle. Go work out. Go do something hard today. Get outside. Put your toes in the grass, man. It's a beautiful life out there. And if we can miss it if we don't stop, smell the roses, you know. All right, friends. I'll talk to you later.